And we will now go on to our next session, which is artists for wildlife and nature, artists who've spent their life in painting wildlife. And their art is not just artistic, but also very scientific, in that it projects with exactness what is true in real life. And we have as our curator for a very special virtual exhibition, which we will be inaugurating later in the session. We would like to invite Prasad Natarajan ji. He is the founder of Artists for Wildlife and Nature, which he founded in 2017. It is a collective whose mission is to raise awareness about wildlife, environmental preservation, and artistic skills in portrayal of nature. And it is one of only probably two organizations in India which promotes and exhibits artwork relating to wildlife and nature. He will be moderating this session. Over to you, Prasad ji, and thank you so much for curating the exhibition and bringing together all the wonderful artists.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity to Center for Soft Power and Heritage for creating this wonderful nature festival. Uh, can you hear me, everyone?
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. It's a great nature festival to be part of. So we have four brilliant artists who will be talking in the panel today. Uh, first, we have Sangeeta Kadur. She's from India. So I'd like to introduce her. So Sangeeta is from Bangalore, Karnataka, and she aspires to capture wilderness on paper and canvas, and draw attention to the fascinating nature world that surrounds us. So she's one of the co-illustrator of a big coffee table book project called Hummingbirds. And she's also curated and designed the Holomati Nature Information Center. So she'll be talking first. Then we have Sofiya. Sofiya is Singapore-based. She's Singapore-based wildlife artist and conservation biologist. So she's a growth leader of Creature Conserve, winner of the Human Impact category in David Shepherd Wildlife Artist of the Year 2019 contest, jury member of the Golden Turtle 2020 Connect, and member of the Youth for Wildlife Conservation Network. So she'll be talking next. And then we have Martin Mcguire. He's one of the world's leading wildlife artists, American-born artist, and she's a naturalist and conservationist and a great painter. So her breathtaking acrylic paintings make you feel as if you are actually viewing the animal outside your tent or from the window. Her artworks are in private and corporate collections all over the world. So, and she's appeared on television and major magazines like Africa Geography, African Birds and Birding, National Wildlife Federation magazine, to name just a few of them. And lastly, Julie Askew would be talking about her conservation work and her art journey. So Julie travels and explores nature extensively, sketching and painting the natural wonders of a planet. Her philosophy is to paint only what she has observed herself. So she paints only what she has observed on her own, and she actually carries a lot of field sketchbooks. And from these field sketchbooks, she creates her studio paintings. She's been involved in a conservation project called Lifeline, which she'll be presenting later. So these are the four panel artists who will be talking, who will be discussing about art and their life journey. And so I think Sangeeta has joined in and Sofiya has joined in. So So I think Sangeeta, over to you. Like you can present your presentation. Looking forward to hearing your talk. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prasad, for the introduction. And it's lovely to be here as part of the Srishti Sambhrama Nature Festival. And thank you so much to the whole team at BNMIT, Srishti Sambhrama, and Soft Power magazine as well. It's an honor to be presenting alongside other well-known artists of around the world. And it's a pleasure to be here. I'll just open my presentation. Yeah, 1 second. Can all of you see my presentation?
Yes, Sangeeta, we can.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Well, yes, I've been working as a wildlife illustrator, wildlife artist for more than a decade now, about 15 years or so, since 2005 when I graduated from college. And I think for anybody to be a wildlife or a nature illustrator, you need to fall head over heels in love with nature. And I'm sure everyone will agree with me on that. For me, it is all about, it was a lot to do with responsibility. It is a whole new responsibility to show nature, to depict nature. It's a sense of gratitude and a sense of pride to be able to show wildlife to people, to take it up, to capture something from the field and show it up close to the eye of the viewer. And something that I really cherish, and I've gone on to illustrate many species, which I will be showing to you. It is also, I think I've been really fortunate that I've been influenced by nature at a very young age. It's been ingrained in me, the respect for nature, and I have been taught to play in the wild and observe as much as possible. My uncle always put all of us cousins into vehicles and took us to the forest and helped us experience wilderness all around us. My father, who's an entomologist, he would show us the beauty of our backyard, all the little things, the spiders, the insects, the ants and bees, which was his social insects were his subjects of study. And we were grateful enough to learn about them at a very young age. Though it was not it wasn't forced upon us ever. It was a very gradual understanding that we developed and a respect that we developed with nature, which has been the most amazing thing of my life. Also, because of the influence of my father and my uncle, I think my brother as well turned into a wildlife filmmaker who is really renowned and well known today in India. And that has further inspired me all along my journey as a wildlife artist as well. I think, as you see, a canvas of birds is what inspired me, or I would say, like, got me into observing nature in a bigger sense. I was always introduced to it as a child, yes, but I think it was when I turned into an avid bird watcher myself, that's when I started noticing a lot more and started trying to record that on my canvas, trying to represent that on my canvas. When you're trying to look at birds, it's not just the colorful feathers or their characters itself. It's a lot more. You start observing the trees that they sit on, the fruits that they feed on, the flowers that they nectar from, the insects that they eat, where they roost, all their other behaviors. It's a whole world that you get introduced to. It might be just a little bird after all, but the amount of influence that it has on your life, or it has had on my life, has been amazing. And I think it was because of this love for birds that got me to travel all over the world looking for them. And it was through this travel, I think, I started keeping a nature sketchbook as well. Also, with regard to birds, there's this amazing artist that I used to follow once I started pursuing this field of art, Robert Bateman. He had once said that if someone becomes a bird watcher, the world is in better hands. And I really think so too, because it opens you up to a whole new perspective, and you immerse yourself in nature, that you start observing the entirety. You start falling in love with the environment as a whole and not just small elements of it. This is how my nature journal started off, very crude and rough sketches, but soon it transformed into something more detailed, more colorful, more observations went into my sketchbooks. I used to not only draw birds, but trees, flowers, seeds, and lizards or frogs, snakes, moths. Moths are the best, they pose for you. And it really gave me a sense of um, the vastness or the diversity that is around nature. Through these nature journaling that I started doing myself, I thought that's something that should be shared with a wider audience. And I started conducting these workshops for children to get them to really look at things, to feel for things, to observe them and start recording them in their own journals as well, like I used to. Shilpa and I, a friend, a colleague, we started doing these workshops together. Green scraps is what we call it. And we've been doing it for 10 years now, and it has been an amazing journey to be able to share our passion, our love for nature with them. This was the very first mural that I worked on, and this was pretty much my step into wildlife art in 2005, wherein I started. This was a big mural, and I think initially I started doing it for the sheer joy of it, and sure, to be able to represent nature, what I see around me. But I didn't know there was much more to it at that point of time. Even when I joined art college, I really didn't know that I'd be becoming a nature artist at the end of it. I had no clue, but things progressed in that way. I was fortunate enough to land an amazing, brilliant project on hummingbirds with Gorga Science Foundation in the US. And though I had never seen the birds, just trying to illustrate them, the details, it was a different world altogether. I think this is what instilled that fine detail and that importance that I need to, and also realize that I want to become a wildlife artist and pursue this career in a bigger sense. We started, because I already loved birds, I think it was much more easier for me to capture them in my illustrations. We started looking into the behaviors, we started looking at their forms. We had to be scientifically accurate at the same time. We had to be able to show how aesthetic and beautiful a painting can be, and how the birds, the iridescence of the birds, and how the light falls on them, and how the postures, we were able to go deep into it and try to represent them on our canvases. I started illustrating sunbirds after my hummingbird project, and these are in the old world. Hummingbirds are not there in India; they're only in the new world, the hummingbirds. Whereas someday I hope that I could work on a book on sunbirds as well, and a home country bird that can be represented. I also collaborated with many organizations, wildlife organizations, to come up with books on wildlife, storybooks and guidebooks, and many games, and many little poster projects and information material that would help in the awareness, bringing about awareness about the wildlife that surrounds us. These butterflies, they're all around us. This is in a small city of Bangalore, and we have so much diversity. Through art, I was able to show diversity as well. And every illustration that I made had a scientific research behind it, and I was able to show what nectar plants these butterflies feed on, what host plants that they lay their eggs on, what caterpillars are, are used to moving around on their host plants itself. So we try to show all that in the paintings, and I continue to do that even to this day. Try to be good with my research, and a whole lot of my time goes into research before I get on to illustrating any wildlife species. Moths are quite difficult to see because they are mostly out in the night. But if you do get to see them at any point of time, I think this is how gorgeous they are. And I really wish people would take time to notice the diversity that's just around us. This is amongst the most difficult paintings so far, I would say. But it had a lot went into creating this work of art. I had gone to the zoos to make a lot of sketches of this the monitor lizard, and I also had an opportunity to go to BNHS in Bombay, wherein I got to see the dead specimen and understand the scaling on this reptile. I was able to figure out what the scaling is like on the back, on the lip of the reptile, on the face, on the tail. So all those inputs helped me develop this painting into what it is today. This has been one of my most favorite projects, I would say, a recent project. It was Holemati Nature Information Center. I was asked to assign this task to put together a Nature Information Center from scratch. I pulled along a team of amazing nature enthusiast artists who were also passionate about nature to work on this project together. Behind us is a mural that was painted, hand painted. It's like a three-dimensional mural, and rest of the place we mixed digital art and even hand-drawn sketches to showcase many elements in the Nature Center. The best part about the Nature Information Center is the wide audience that it took our project to. It was a little building in the corner in one of the forest areas, Hills in Karnataka, and the number of people, the school children, the localites who came and were awed by their own fauna and flora that surrounds them was incredible. I think these are the kind of projects that I enjoy involving myself in now, to be able to take my work to different audience, and not just the audience in where they put up my artwork in a gallery, or this is much more meaningful, a lot more purposeful, I feel. And so I'm really looking forward to creating more work like this, where I can reach out to people with my art. And yeah, at the end of it, if I could put in a sense of curiosity or any kind of love for the natural world during this process, that would be the most satisfactory element of being a nature artist. So yeah, hoping that many of you get influenced by nature and live alongside them. Yeah, thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sangeeta, for your wonderful presentation. Few of the breathtaking works we have seen, especially the monitor lizard. It is also part of the virtual show that will be opening later. So without further delay, I think we'll move to Sofiya. I think if you're ready with your presentation, Sofiya, you're on. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Prasad, for introduction. So my name is Sofiya Shukhova. I'm a wildlife artist and a conservationist, meaning that I'm spending around 50% of my time working as a trained conservationist for various NGOs or doing consultancy for them. And the rest of my time, I'm creating wildlife art and talking about various conservation issues using my artistic skills. Also, recently I became Creature Conserve Network growth leader. And if you are not familiar with this organization, I really recommend you to look into them, because their aim is to bring artists and conservationists together and inspire them to work together to find new creative ways to save species from extinction and protect various ecosystems. So I have quite an unconventional journey to where I am now. I did my undergraduate studies in architecture. And once I graduated, I realized that actually probably architecture is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. So I started to do a lot of freelance work, and in the same time I started to paint, and I painted mostly animals. So I was spending a lot of times in zoo and various parks, and also drawing and paintings from photos and videos. And this is at this point of time in my life, I realized that I'm actually interested in animal conservation, and I want to do more for animals. So I took a short course about conservation and species recovery, and after that started to volunteer for different NGOs across Southeast Asia. Once I volunteered enough, I finally got a job in conservation. But during all this journey, I was continuing creating wildlife art, exhibiting, also conducting various events, workshops, etc., just to raise awareness about conservation issues that animals are facing and threats that animals are facing. In terms of how my art evolved during the time, I started with very figurative, I would say old school classic art. So as you can see on this painting, I was mostly using watercolors and was creating portraits of the animals on a white background. So these are nice artworks that showing the beauty of wildlife, but probably do not really have a strong message behind it. So with the time, my works evolved and changed to something more conceptual and contemporary. So for instance, this artwork that I created a couple of years ago called Shark Fins, and is basically about shark fin trade. So as you can see, it's not really portraying sharks themselves, but rather talking about the threat and conservation issues. This particular artwork won in the Human Impact category of Wildlife Artist of the Year back in 2019. Another example of, again, an artwork which is not really portraying an animal itself, but rather talking about a threat that this animal is facing is this one. It's called red ivory. So I'm sure most of you heard about elephant ivory trade. And you know that elephants are being killed just because of the ivory. But I'm pretty sure less of you know about red ivory. And red ivory is basically produced from the head casks of helmeted hornbills, which are critically endangered species. And again, they need to be killed in order to get this product from them. So I feel really privileged in terms of that I'm working in conservation myself. So I have an access to all this information and knowledge about less known, less covered conservation issues. And this is what I'm trying to talk about using my artworks. So another artwork that I recently created is this one. It's about bear paws. Bears are traded for many different parts and reasons. And bear's paws are just one of these products. And for this piece was inspired by the information that I actually read in a book and also in a couple of other publications and media reports about how literally thousands of bear paws are illegally smuggled every year from Russia to China. So as you can see, each of my artwork has a science behind it or information behind it. And this is what's called art informed by science approach. Another project which I'm currently working on is about the Asian songbird trade. So this project is financially supported by Curator, Conserve, and involves several NGOs working on tackling the Asian songbird trade. So for this particular project, I traveled to Indonesia and Malaysia and met with conservationists working for 3 different NGOs called Flight, Planet Indonesia, and Traffic. And all the artworks that I created based on this traveling and observing that is happening in the field are actually portraying different stages of the trade. So for instance, this work is talking about how the birds are being kept on the market, often with a lot of animal concerns, crowded in a cage, spreading disease to each other. So this particular artwork is called How Many is Too Many, and questioning how many birds you need to put in one cages so that they will start die. So I'm planning to do an exhibition about the Asian songbird trade, hopefully next year, and raise awareness about this issue. So here's my website, also account for Facebook and Instagram, my email if you're interested in collaborations or want to ask any questions directly, as well as Creature Conserve website, which I think very useful if you're an artist or conservationist and looking for collaborations or funding. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Sofiya, for this very unique presentation, because I've seen many artists portray, the classical style, which is realistic work, but very few artists, representing wildlife art in this form. So, very informative and interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah. Next, we have Jan Martin Mcguire. Her works are really hyper-realistic. I should say completely different from Sofiya's work. So if Jan is ready, she can take over. Jan, hello.
Jan, you'll have to unmute yourself, please.
Yeah, unmute. I think you need to unmute yourself. Yeah.
All right, sorry guys. Well, my husband James coming in to help me there, because I'm sort of, a little less of an IT person. Anyway, I want to thank you all for inviting me to be part of this panel, particularly Prasad. It's good to see your face. I'm feeling a little funny because I'm watching these 2 great artists ahead of me doing these great slideshow programs. Fortunately, I'm sort of in the middle of a big project, a conservation project, so I wasn't able to put much together, but I hope that I can share some things with you. It's interesting to me that this entire panel is of women. I've been a professional artist for 40 years, and when I started out, there was hardly any women. So to see these tremendous women at work in wildlife and conservation is just wonderful for me. One of your former presenters talked about Robert Bateman. The way that I started in wildlife art actually was in early childhood. I was what in America we call tomboys. I was out climbing trees, catching snakes, whatever. And when it was snowy and cold, I lived in Colorado, I would be inside drawing. As time went on, I went through high school and then I went to a university. And unfortunately, or fortunately, the entire curriculum was modern abstract art. And while I actually learned some about design and technique, and Robert Bateman actually talks about the same thing, in the end, my heart was still in wildlife and nature. I continued to depict it on my own. I went through 3 years of college, and I decided and discovered 2 things. One was to be a wildlife artist. You didn't have to have a degree, you know, as long as you're a fine artist. I mean, teaching or commercial art or whatever, you would need a degree. The second thing is that my professors weren't making a living with their art, and thus they were doing teaching. So I actually left university after 3 years and started out on my own. I started originally in pencil, pen and ink, etchings, but I came to realize it wasn't speaking from my heart about the variety and color and textures of nature. So I took up acrylic painting. That is what I prefer. I tried watercolors, I tried oils. So I admire you guys that do watercolor. I am so not good about planning things ahead of time. And oil painting to me is too slow. I have this immediate response of what I'm wanting to do. And I dry my paint fast with a hair dryer. With acrylic paint, one of the things that I'm capable of doing is capturing textures and lighting. Those are the two hallmarks of my work. So I have a couple of paintings. Sorry, again, not a presentation, and hopefully you can see them well. Let me know if you can't. This is a barbet found in Tanzania, and it's on a termite mound, so you see all of this incredible texture. This is the kind of thing that I love to depict. This little painting here of a kudu, graded kudu, shows lighting, the backlighting that I like to do with my work, and the light against dark. So I moved, well, let me back up. For 20 years, my husband, James, and I, and by the way, my husband is a terrific videographer and photographer. If you want to check out our YouTube page, which is Mcguire and Hines Studios on YouTube. We've been leading groups to Africa for 20 years. And sorry, dogs are noisy here. And we finally decided a couple of years ago, you know, we love Africa. We're not getting any younger, so we're going to move. And we did. We sold our house, we sold our cars, we sold our furniture, and now we're living in Africa. It's my heart. I love it. I do still, interestingly enough, I have a huge commission series of North American birds. I'm in the United States, all I can sell is African, come to Africa, and what I'm selling is North American. But it's all right. I love everything about all wildlife. So now that we're living here, it's great because, you know, I have more of a constant exposure to the lighting and the textures and everything about nature that I want to depict. Talking a bit about conservation, what I will say is, in my opinion, wildlife artists absolutely have a duty to talk about conservation and to try to raise awareness for conservation. We absolutely have that duty as much as we can do. Whether it's from, well, I've seen one of your previous presenters working with children and nature museums, anything and everything to get people to understand our next generation. They're the ones who's going to be making a lot of decisions about conservation. For me, what I do donate artwork. Over the years, hundreds of thousands of dollars per year, millions in total for 40 years. I have no idea how much. They go to different groups that auction them off or whatever it takes. We also do work in conservation with boots on the ground. We did it in North America. We did what they call, well, they're basically a borehole in the desert that water comes up, and it's for bighorn sheep and, you know, other desert wildlife. We've done the most conservation work in Africa, always have. I've worked on several huge conservation projects with rhinos. They're very special to me, as well as elephants, but these two big projects, we did one in Zambia, where we worked with a group in the very far north, in Zambia, in Lungwa Park, which is actually, this project is run with Frankfurt Zoological Society. But it also works with, believe it or not, hunters around the area, these what they call wildlife management areas. And they help protect poachers from getting into the park. We raised about $90,000 for that project. The original purpose of it was to create boreholes for the rangers, so they weren't having to get drinking water out of the rivers, where they could get poisoned either accidentally with cholera or on purpose from poachers. So we managed to raise enough money for all of the ranger stations, as well as had enough extra that we bought equipment and, you know, night vision goggles and different things like that. All the way to small projects that we've worked with local communities, and particularly, you know, talking about bird conservation. So I feel very fortunate that I've been able to live my life dream, to be here actually working on conservation projects. Next you have another, well, she's a fellow artist that lives in England, but she and I actually worked on different conservation projects. Part of the things we do is bring artists to Africa for conservation projects. And Julie came here. We spent a couple of years, I wish, a couple of weeks studying wildlife. And then we, mostly elephants, because it was an elephant conservation project. We were able to go back and have several major showings around the United States, selling our artwork and raising money for an elephant orphanage. As someone mentioned earlier about elephants, even many Chinese, who are the ones that mostly consume wildlife products, they don't seem to understand that you have to kill the elephant for the ivory. They seem to think that they're teeth that fall out just like humans. And in fact, that's not true. The entire face is cut off and the tusk taken out. So to try to get people to understand, whether they're consumers, whether they're people that live in the country, or just people around the world that will donate, has become sort of my passion. I'm known as a wildlife artist, conservationist, and naturalist. I absolutely believe that artists, wildlife artists, have to experience what they paint. There's something about it that gets into your senses when you're out in the field, you know, and then it comes out at the end of your brush or, you know, clay or whatever you're working with. You absorb the sounds, the smells, everything. And it's funny because I give quite a few workshops. I can usually tell if somebody's worked from a zoo animal or something that they haven't actually seen in the wild and experienced it. So that's sort of my advice for young artists. It's difficult for me to give a whole lot of other advice for young artists because the world has changed a lot and the art community's changed so much since when I got started. Now there's so much on the internet and seriously, I have galleries around the world and we sell ourselves through our website, but a lot of our sales are from YouTube and other social media and websites. So it's a different world than when I started because there were a lot of wildlife art shows and things in America, which just don't exist now. So it's a new field. All I can give as advice for young artists is to study your subject, study other artists like Robert Bateman, who I learned of very early in my career, and now we're still great friends. I can call him on the phone and talk to him. Study other artists, study wildlife, and looking at the conservation problems that are facing the world. So I think, oh, we've got a bit of time. Oh, no, we don't. This says 10 minutes. Okay, so I guess maybe I'll go backwards and talk a bit about my techniques, maybe that'll help some artists. Now he's telling me, no, I don't have any time. Sorry.
You had 10 minutes, you used 10 minutes.
Okay, all right, great. It's nice to see you all and thank you so much.
Yeah,
bye.
Thank you so much, Jan, for this
informative
talk. Yes, nice to see you in person.
You too, thank you.
So glad Julie could join on time. Like I'm very happy. Like, Julie, you are on mute. I think you need to. Yes.
Hello, Prasad. Nice to see you. And hi, Jan and the other guys.
Hey,
Julia. Hi, Jan.
Yay.
Yeah. Had trouble getting internet, but managed to get it in the end. So
yeah, glad you could make it. So if you, before you just start off, like I've given you an introduction already. I can play the video you had shared with me, like
Yes, please.
before you start talking.
Yeah, it's just a short video just showing some of my latest work.
Yes, 1 second. Just a moment.
For anyone watching, there's also some other videos on there, some super videos on. If you go to Lifeline Media Group, you'll come across our other videos as well.
Yeah, I've downloaded the 3 videos you had shared with me. I'm just going to share them. 1 second. So you're able to watch my screen, right?
Yep.
So I'll just play your video now.
So to click once more.
Ma'am, can I play that video?
Yes, Kotiji, please play. Prasad, you can stop sharing screen and we'll play the video.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm just. The volume isn't working. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, so we have it. We'll play it for you.
Yeah, I think that would be better.
So you have to stop sharing screen then.
I'll do that. I'll do that. Yeah, 1 second. Can you hear it now?
No, it's not playing.
1 second. 1 second. I'll stop. So yeah, I think you're able to play it now, no? I'll stop sharing. So I think, Julie, you can start your presentation. Like you can talk about your work and yeah.
Thank you. So that's just a short video of some of my latest pieces, which I call the Lifeline Series. Lifeline because nature needs a lifeline, and maybe art can give that. And Lifeline because the natural links link the life together. So hence the title Lifeline. A little bit about me and where I come from with all of this. My training is in scientific illustration, so that's zoological, medical and botanical illustration, into the nitty gritty, the anatomy and all the insides of stuff and how does everything fit together. And for me, that was really important to learn about. But rather than do scientific illustration, I decided to do wildlife art anyway, which has always been my passion. And the illustration being a way of learning about the anatomy and the scientific side of things. But the training in that was in pure watercolor and everything observation from life, only from life, no photos at all. And that was a fantastic training to do. So measured drawings, microscope work, all the works. But having left university, I didn't want to do scientific illustration because most of it is about drawing dead things. And I'm too interested in life to draw dead things all the time. So wildlife art was the direction for me. And watercolors didn't quite work for that. Again, Robert Bateman's name comes up. And I found his book as an 18-year-old in the local bookshop. I didn't know you could do art and wildlife as a career, as a livelihood. And seeing that book changed my life really and my direction. And as Jan said, it's a privilege to know him just that little bit now and actually have exhibited with him is a huge privilege. And Jan, it's a privilege to exhibit with you as well. So he's been a life changer for an awful lot of artists. So can one person make a difference? Oh yes, definitely. And I think the message from him is to give to younger people coming through and encourage them for art and conservation and always try and help. I know Jan does that a lot as well. I've come across artists who don't, and that's a little sad. There are no secrets. We're all in this puddle together. Anyway, so I headed off doing my fine art career, which has gone really well, over 20 years now. I headed for America and the market over there because that's where everything happens in wildlife art in general. In the UK, there isn't much of a market anymore. It died out in the 80s. So America's the place. I've been very fortunate to be with the Society of Animal Artists and get to know people like Jan and all the other great artists over there. And I got into the gallery that I really wanted to. My ambition since being young was to get into trail side, and I got in with them and was really happy and everything. And then I stopped and I thought, okay, what am I doing? Why am I doing paintings of wildlife? What do I achieve with this? Is it all about me? It needs to be about more than that, more than just going to shows. So I decided to change the direction of the wildlife art I was doing. By now I'm working in acrylics. And I decided to create this Lifeline series. And what I depict are the conservation stories that are going on out there, the natural links between species highlighting conservation issues. And that's become a real focus for me, to try and be a link between the conservation, the natural scientists and the public. Public generally don't sit reading scientific papers. They watch things on the television and stuff, but they don't read the science. So more and more now, I'm trying to be a bit of a science communicator, if you like, the link between science and the public, to give them some insight as to what's happening out there. And my latest project is Antarctic science and polar science. And I'm working with the British Antarctic Survey and the Cabot Institute for the Environment, looking at polar science and ice cores and all sorts of exciting stuff, and depicting that and the ecology of the areas, the things that live on and in ice, and depict that science for the public, but also being involved in some of their research as well. So it's very exciting. For students coming through, one thing that's often asked is working from photographs. Is that a good idea? I think it's a good idea when you're really, really, really much a beginner. But the best you can do is to do work from life. Have sketchbooks. Draw anything and everything. It doesn't have to be wildlife. It's all fantastic practice, whatever it is that you're drawing. So just draw. You can't draw too much. You need to hone your observation skills and shading and toning. And then you can use those as references, as photographs should only ever be references. Many artists and more experienced artists can look at someone else's work and you can see when it's copied from a photograph. It's a bit like a dancer. If a dancer plays only to records, only to canned music, there's something missing in their dance. They're not experiencing the music the same way. If a dancer dances to live music, there's interaction with the other musicians, and the full experience comes through in their expression. And I think the same is very much true of artists. If you need to experience the whole thing, and also from a technical point of view, you need to understand the subject as a 3D subject, not as a 2D flat photograph. If all you have of reference is a photograph, you're going to produce the photograph because you have nothing else to add to it. And I think that's really, really important. So get out there and sketch. Many people say, well, I can't get out to wildlife. I haven't got anything around me. Everybody's got insects in the garden, outside, even on the street. Dogs, cats, birds are everywhere. There's no excuses. There's always possibilities. And it's so much
flowers as well. Like there are a lot of flowers and everybody has a flowering plant.
Exactly. Beautiful flowers. Anything. Look at a leaf. Look how light shines through a leaf. There's so much you can do with the really simple stuff. So it doesn't have to be the big animals of Africa and America and India, the tigers, or anything. It doesn't have to be that. Remember the small stuff as well. It's exquisite, and there's so much there. And I think that's really, really important. Am I okay for time?
Yes, we have another 6 minutes.
Oh, brilliant. What else was I going to say? Yeah, so for new artists coming through, practice is the key. Practice as much as you can. Just keep on doing it. Look at other people's art. These days you can do it online. When I was coming through, there was no internet, so it was books, as many books as I could get hold of. I had stacks of art books, because one of the best ways of learning is to look at other people's art. Not always good art. You learn as much from bad art as you do from good art. And it's all a matter of opinion anyway. So you have to decide what you like, and look at a painting and think, well, why do I like it? What is it about that painting that works for me? And see if you can incorporate that in your own work. And I think that's really important. And again, if something doesn't work, think, oh gosh, I have to remember not to do that. Look at how other artists do lighting, how they do composition. Lighting especially is a really important thing. And again, you don't want to copy that from a photograph. You want to experience it. You can make little 3D models of something you're going to paint. They don't have to be very good. But if you make a little 3D model and light it from different directions and experiment and actually see it, and then use that as your reference. There are so many ways of building your reference pile so that the photographs literally become just part of that reference. And I think that's really important for people coming through. Yeah, so I think practice is the key, and online, find out, link with other people, with other artists. I think, you know, we've got quite a community now online, and I think that's really important to get involved with. Don't be frightened. You know, people are very giving and very generous, and willing to help. At least most of them are anyway, I think. and artists like Jan, they're great at, you know, helping and encouraging and nurturing. And again, back to Robert Bateman, hugely giving artist, and you can learn a lot. You can't go too wrong if you follow his lead, I think. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say, the Lifeline paintings, I developed that into a project called Lifeline Project. And you can find it online. We've got the lifelineart.org. And we do educational programs for needy schools all over the world. We've got over 70 schools now in Africa, South America, Madagascar. And we do art-based eco-education projects for them. So art can be used very much to nurture young people and bring them through into conservation and wildlife and understanding of our natural world. Because very often that gets lost. As we leave the ground, as we get taller, as we get older, so we seem to lose contact with the earth. And it's good to keep that contact there and keep kids interested in the nature. So that's part of our project that we run, as well as expeditions and all sorts of exciting things. At least when COVID is over, we'll get back to it then.
So if you're done, Julie, we could go to the questionnaire. We would get additional time on that.
Yes, exactly. Go for it.
So I have prepared a few questions. Like we haven't received many questions from the audience.
Prasad, sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Could we inaugurate the exhibition so that our audiences can view it? We don't want them to miss that very important.
Fine, we can do that. So I'm
we're all also very excited about it. We can get back to the discussion after.
Sure. I'm ready with the exhibition. Like I'm right in the entrance, so I can share the screen, right? Yeah.
We have with us our founder Hari Kiran Vadlamani ji. Hari.
Namaste.
We would like to introduce him to all our esteemed panelists.
Sure.
Yeah. He's Hari. He's also an artist at heart, I think.
Aspiring.
Yeah.
Ayaka. Thank you.
Yeah, please inaugurate it.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I can share my screen, right?
Yes, please.
Yes, please.
Are you able to see the screen, everyone?
Yes, we can see it.
Can you make it full screen, Prasad, if it's possible?
1 second, let me see.
I think it's already full screen.
1 second. The menu, I need to figure out how this works. I think it's already full screen. I'm
Sure, please go ahead.
Yeah. Press that hamburger there, where your mouse is.
Yeah. So I think it's already full screen. We'll figure it out. Like not waste much time on this. So I think with this we'll declare the exhibition open. We worked a lot, like with short span. We put up these artworks, and a lot of work has gone into it. So let's enter the exhibition. We can actually take the guided tour, I think, which is better.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have the list of artists. 1 second, let me go back. So we have the list of artists, then we have the show note, which talks about the show and what it is about and why we have put up this exhibition. So it talks about all that. So I think now I'm able to enter full screen, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, now it's better. So I'll start the tour. You can see all the displayed artworks. They are totally 21 artists from around the world. They are displaying their work here, and totally 43 artworks from various genre, we've tried to put it across, like we've tried to display. And this exhibition is a mixed thing of masterclass artists, like they're really senior artists who have won several awards, they're professional artists, and there are few amateur artists as well. We've tried to bring in the mixture of all these artists together. So we'll start the tour. I think the system would take us through, I think. So first we have Carl's work, like 3 of his works we've displayed to begin with. So this is one of my favorite works, like I really love owls. So these are owls from Canada and US. So he's painted it in single panel. Another one that made to the cover. And then we have Chirag, who's from India, like his works displayed next to Carl's work. 2 of his works. Then we have Dao Wang's work. He's from Vietnam. With beautiful works, like very different from what we see usually. Like we see elephants and tigers and lions, but his works are completely different. So native, again, he works on native species, which is something I really like. And then we have Tony Prinham, like he's from Australia, like his works. So he again works on a lot of native species, like and then one of the senior artists from India, Eric Ramanujan, like one of his work. This is made from enamel paint, like I can't believe. So this one won this year's Artist of the Year award in AWN show, Shakti Prasad's work. And then for Jan, we have dedicated a complete wall for her 3 works. So Secreted Bird from Africa, then painted dogs from Africa, then the bongo deer. So then we have one of the hyper-realistic artists, Kazi Nazir. He works on acrylics. It's sometimes it baffles me, like how someone can do this kind of work in acrylic. So 3 of his works. And then we have Jonathan Pointer's work, like he's from UK. So both of these artists, their styles match a bit, and they've used a lot of browns and purple. So I put up a wall with mammals alone. So rattle, this is a honey badger, very rarely seen in the wild. So Eric's work again, like tigress and a cub. So then these 2 are my works, like spotted owlet. And then Oriental dwarf, one of the smallest kingfishers in India and the most colorful ones. So then again Shakti Prasad's work, Grey Jungle Fowl. This is a pastel work. We have Meena Subramaniam's work, really a big panel. It talks about Western Ghats and it's done in acrylic. Sangeeta's work, she had already presented this during a presentation. So Pachali, he's from Germany. He's one of the best illustrators I've seen online. Like I have not seen his work in real, but one of the best. And Sangeeta's work again. Great hornbill. This is Shweta's work, Great Indian Hornbill, using pen and color pencil. And Meeta Dani's work, she's an Indian but now residing in Canada. So watercolor work of Indian Chinkara. Jai Kumar's work of lion-tailed macaque, one of the endangered species. Meeta's work again, watercolor work. Again, Pachali's work, like he from Germany, Siberian eagle owl. Then we have Lenin's work, color pencil work, Great Indian Hornbill again. So Pachali's work, lesser kestrel. He's tried to portray the male and female and their feeding behavior. Lenin's work, again, a juvenile red-wattled lapwing. Then we have 2 miniature works as well from Rachel and Wes. So we tried to bring in all the genres, like we put into miniature works as well from them. So we have Hemalata's work. So she is one of the leading botanical artists from India. So her work. Then we have Helen's work. She is basically from China, now in New Zealand. So she does a lot of illustration work. Hemalata's work again. So Helen's work again. So both of them working on watercolor. So I've put both the artworks together. So that ends the tour, I think. Like it was a bit fast. So keeping the timeline and time limit and all that. So we've gone through it fast, but we'll be sharing the link. You can actually go through all the artworks, their titles, subject, and the scientific names, description, all that. You can actually go through it. We'll be sharing the link. So I think I've done the tour. So can I stop sharing the screen now? Like,
yes, Prasad, you can, and you can go.
Yeah, in case, yes, I can stop this. So that was the tour. I hope it was. I was given very short time, so any mistakes or any flaws are there, like kindly pardon me. Like, and this is the first time I'm curating this kind of show. I've done 8 shows inside India. I've curated them and I've put works, but this is the first time I'm doing it with the international artists. So any feedback?
Good job. Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. Yeah.
Thank you. So any negative feedback as well, please let me know so I can correct myself. So I think we can move to the QA session since we've
Prasad, before that, can we have Hariji speak a few words?
Yeah, sure.
Hariji, over to you.
Right, I'll pass. Thank you.
All right. Okay, Prasad, then you can take over the Q&A session.
Yeah. So I actually had prepared few questions like on my own. So I would like to ask the panel of artists these questions, like because I feel these are very important questions that we need to let the audience know. So in case we're getting audience questions as well, since we're open for the Q&A, we can actually take in those questions as well. So my first question is to all the 4 panel artists, like, see, there are no courses on wildlife art, like any other art form. There are courses there, which are there in schools or institutes or organized, like many educational institutions. But on wildlife art, there are no courses. Like, so how does a beginner, like let's say I'm a beginner, I want to learn this art form. So how do I start doing that? I think Jan, Julie, and Sangeeta and Sofiya, you can take turns to answer this. So this is my first question to the panel of artists.
Okay, so I had a bit of hard time hearing you. I think you were asking about online courses.
Yeah, not only online courses, like any courses, like no institute teaches wildlife art. So online courses also fall into that. So
I think there's a lot of online courses that are out there. We are doing a bit more, but to me, as we talked about, Prasad, the learning of the media is important, but as Julie said, it's all about practice. And the thing that I say is just get out and study it. So between what she said, and I'm sketching all the time, which trust me, she does. I spent many days with her in Africa. Sketching, learning observation skills. That really is actually, to me, more important than classes. So many classes are about, okay, here's my style, copy exactly what I do. Well, that has nothing to do with being an artist. I call it baking a cake. It's a recipe. Pick up this brush, pick up this paint, do this. That has nothing to do with who you are as an artist. So, as other people have talked about, Robert Bateman, there's other artists, Carl Brenders, John Sari Lester. Why am I talking? Well, Carl's not dead, but neither's Bob. But there's lots of good art you can study. And then get out in nature and observe, whether, as Julie said, a leaf, an insect, a bird. Don't just paint something because you think it might. Sort of gone quiet. We're still here. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear you, Jan.
Maybe she off to Julie. See what she says.
Yeah, I think Julie, you can also.
Yeah, I mean, I agree totally with what Jan says there. It's about you and your art. It's not about a teacher. And the best learning you can do is doing it, and getting out there and practice, 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 and study other artists. Like I said before, look at what you like and what you don't like and work out why. It's a very individual journey, and you need to be passionate about it. You need to burn from this to really get anywhere with it. If you just sit back, it doesn't do it itself. It's down to one person, and that's you. So just go for it.
Perfect.
Yeah, I think if Sangeeta is online, like.
Well, after Jan and Julie have said that, it's pretty much the same thing. And I had pretty much like I could, when Jan talked about her college stories, I think I could relate to that. 5 years that I did was mainly getting the skills of becoming an artist, or trying to understand paint and color and practice every day in college. But then no one was there to really teach wildlife art, or to talk to us about anatomy and the whole, how to capture wildlife from nature. So I think that part of it was mainly through influences that I've had from the art world. Meeting a few wildlife artists during my visit in the US was something that really opened my eyes up. Before that, I think the way I used to do art was completely different. Even now, I'm still a beginning learner. Like, there's so much for me to learn. As Julie mentioned about light. Light is something that I haven't got the hang of yet. I know I need to put in my practice and figure that out. And as they all said, it's only practice that can help you. And I think if you're getting into wildlife art, trying to go out and understand nature, like, become a naturalist and try to know their behaviors, because once you look at the behaviors in the field, and that is what you'll know what you want to show in your paintings when you're trying to depict them. So yeah, the field, going out into the field is the key thing as well.
Thank you. Yeah. Sofiya, you want to take this question?
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree with, obviously, with all what was just mentioned. And even based on my experience, I studied architecture and conservation. So I never learned wildlife art in university or in higher education establishment. So it's all about the practice, and more you practicing, better you become. Another thing that I think Julie mentioned it while giving advice to rising artists is the community is very important, and it actually can, in a sense, replace the university or some education program. So if you connect with right people, with different artists who are open to see your artworks in progress and giving you advice, that is the best thing you can do. Because the critic is helping so much. I myself sharing my artworks with other artists and listening to their feedbacks, and they do the same. And this helps a lot, because sometimes you are so stuck on your artwork and you might think it's totally bad or it's totally amazing. And other people might see it differently. And it's always great to have this feedback from other professionals before you show this artwork to the rest of the world.
So the second question, I think like we already, like most of you answered it, but I still want to ask, because I think there is a culture right now, like many of the artists I see online or even offline, they work mainly with photographs. Like most of them haven't seen the species at all, like still they work on those kind of species. So is this trend a good trend, or is it a good practice to do this kind of artworks? So I think Jan, you can answer.
I knew you were going to say that. I totally work from photographs, but they're based on my experience. They're photographs I've taken to remind me of my experience. Julie and I have a little bit different philosophy. Hers is fantastic. She sketches constantly, which I admire and think is great, and think it's a good thing to do. But for me, when I'm out in the wild and I'm experiencing nature, I know that my human mind is not capable of remembering every little aspect of it. So I'm absorbing it and photographing it. People say, okay, you just copy a photo. No, there's very rarely in one of my paintings that there's less than 10 photos. It's usually more like 50, but they're based again on my personal experience. Now I will say, I will admit, when I first started out, I fell into the trap of buying photographs from professional artists, photographers. Don't do that. There's a multitude of reasons not to do it, but the most is, as Julie and I have talked about, is that absorbing into yourself of what happened and how you feel and how you saw it. If you've never been to Africa or never been to India like me, you know, I have painted things I haven't seen in the wild, but I did a ton of research before I ever started. So that's what I, again, just keep going back to, is experiencing it yourself. But yes, I do use photography.
I think Julie, you already spoke about it, but still I want to hear.
Yeah, I can always elaborate. Actually, Jen, you're not so dissimilar to me in what your philosophy. My philosophy is that photos are a reference, just as you say, they're a tool. And you never use just one. I think the danger of a lot of people coming through is they find a photograph, a single photograph that they like, and then they copy it. That's the danger. And that's not art. You may as well just put the photograph on the wall. It doesn't achieve anything. But using, like a jigsaw puzzle, building your composition and your image and lighting and everything else together using different photos as reference is absolutely great way of doing things. I'm just a sketching nutcase, and I can't stop sketching. I love it. And for me, that's the core of what I do. But that doesn't mean that's what everybody has to do. Of course not. It's just my style. It's my way of doing things. But I agree, absolutely. It's fantastic to, photography is a great tool, but it should only ever be that, a tool. And that means using multitude of images. And they need to be your own, as Jan said, and as I said about the dancer, you need the whole experience. I think that's really important.
Can I say another thing, Prasad?
Yes, sure.
Again, I love that analogy of yours, Julie. What I really want to warn artists about is never copying photos off the internet. It's illegal. It's called copyright infringement. Do not do it. Now, I'll have a lot of photographs of something, and maybe the ear isn't turned just the direction I want. So I may go on Google and just look at what sort of the inside of an ear looks like. Absolutely do not copy from Google or books or anything else. It's completely illegal, besides the fact that it doesn't help you as an artist.
Very important point. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Sangeeta, you want to take this question?
So I think I remember both create one composition. But again, before that, what I also do is, if, for example, the monitor lizard that I was making a painting of, like, I would take a big newsprint sheet and charcoal pencil, and then look at a lot of images on the internet, and I just do sketches of them, just do anatomy sketches of it, try to understand how their anatomy is in different angles. And later, I figure out what angle that I want the monitor in, if I want the tongue out or the tongue in, the tail curved in a particular direction. It's all up to me about how I choose to depict it. And then because of all those anatomy study sketches, it really helps when you're actually trying to figure out your final composition. Same thing with, again, going out in the field and knowing how a hornbill looks and what it does and what its behavior is. Trying to, if you want to show the tail fanned out, if you want to show a fig in its beak, or if you want to make it look in one particular direction, it's all up to you, the composition. You drive the composition, but yes, understanding how things look in the field and then doing a lot of anatomy sketches will really help you in your final artwork as well. Yeah.
Sofiya?
Yeah, I probably will start answering this question, but saying that I do not think there is right way of using photos or not using photos. We are artists, not scientists, so we are totally free to choose to do whatever we want if we are satisfied with the results, if we are able to sell it, or yeah, it's just up to us to decide, I guess. And of course, having experience seeing animals in the wild and then creating artworks based on that, it's a totally different experience. And I believe that if you're creating artworks based on something you saw in real life, they will be more emotionally charged and will be able to have a bigger or larger impact. However, I do realize that not all of us is able to see all the species we want in the wild. Of course, as mentioned, there are plenty things that we can see in our backyard, but not everything. And especially if we're talking about endangered species, there are also a lot of concerns about it, even if we are able to go in their habitats and try to observe them. So how we do it ethically, how we do not disturb them even more. So I think in this case, using photos is totally fine. And I think what also was mentioned that another great medium to use as a reference is video. It's what I'm personally using sometimes because, again, of course, it's not a real life, but you can see the movement of an animal, you can see the behavior of an animal. So if I myself is not able to observe this particular species in the wild, I would sketch from the video instead of sketching from the photo.
Well, again, if you don't mind, I'll just pop in here with a thought. Artists, a lot of times, wildlife artists, will go to zoos, which are fine, especially if you sketch from life. But you have to understand what zoos do to animals, particularly big cats. If you've seen a lion in the wild, they have this musculature because they're out, chasing prey. What a lion looks like in a zoo is completely different than what a lion looks like in Africa. So if you're working from zoo animals, you have to research it and understand the anatomy and what's underneath and what's different. Just interject that.
Yeah, can I just add on that?
Yes.
Build on that. Unless your aim is actually talk about animal welfare and of the animals in captivity, then I guess that would be your aim to portray it.
So I think we are on time, for out of times. So it was a wonderful panel discussion. We got a lot of time to take in few questions as well. So if another 5 minutes we have for out of time. So I would request Ms. Vijay Lakshmi to speak a few words.
Sure.
Hari, would you like to say a few words, Hari? Hari? Hari, are you there? Anyway, I would like to say that the artwork is simply amazing. And I would also like to say that Prasad has done a fantastic job. He's very organized. And we were looking at all the mails he was sending out. And the way he went through arranging this was really commendable.
Thank you.
So, Hari, we look forward to, doing this quite often. I will allow, I will allow Varsha to do the thanking, but I would like to say that we're really, really happy that, you know, all of you have shared this fantastic art that you've all brought out. I mean, it's just now I saw somebody messaging and they said that, you know, somebody in their house said, I don't believe this is art and it's more like a photograph. So, I mean, they said it just looks so real. The art is simply amazing. Varsha?
Yeah, thank you, Auntie. So with this, we come to the end of a wonderful session. Thank you so much to our most dynamic chair, Mr. Prasad Natarajan. You've brought together a wonderful panel and we thoroughly enjoyed the session. And this was the first time we decided to do an exhibition, and Prasadji has set it up so well, like you all saw. The link is also on our website, so please do make sure to go check it out and also spread the word about it.
Sir, I'll be sharing it, sharing the link with everyone, like all the artists who participated and on the social media as well. So, thank you for the link. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prasadji. And thank you to the ladies of this evening, Sangeeta, Julie, Sofiya, and Jan. You're all doing such a fantastic job educating us and roping all of us into, you know, conservation and wildlife. So we can't wait to do this all with you again. Thank you, Nandini ji, also for staying with us throughout. A gentle reminder to our audience regarding tomorrow's sessions. We have a session on wildlife photography, followed by a session on success stories of wildlife conservation. We hope to see you all here tomorrow. Thank you and namaste.
And we'll be inaugurating the wildlife photography exhibition tomorrow.
Yeah.
If I could say a few words, like I just have 2 minutes, so I think.
Sure, yeah. Yes, Prasad.
I'd like to thank the panel of artists. Like it was a very short notice that I gave to them. Like they were ready, and there were a lot of technical difficulties, and you know, I understand a lot of personal commitments are there, and so they're able to join in a short notice. And thank you for putting up a presentation as well. Like it was nice interacting with all the artists, and I would like to thank the artists who sent in their artworks as well on time. So it was really short notice. I just gave them 5 days time. So they sent in all the artworks online, and I would like to thank all the artists who supported this initiative. If not for their support, this wouldn't have been possible. Yeah, so I would like to thank them as well. And thank you again, Center for Soft Power and Heritage, for giving this platform. It's been a very tough year for artists especially. So most of the shows have been cancelled and no shows are happening. So a virtual show is good as the real show. Like, I'm happy for getting this opportunity.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Well done.
So with that,
Namaskar and good night.
yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Good day and
Thank you.
good night.
Good night. Yeah, good night.